Hello again. So this is my third video, which is the second of the steward training videos. To try to introduce people to the tools and the core ideas of the Zen Peacemaker Circles, which were an experiment designed by Bernie Glassman, a wonderful Zen master who passed away sadly last week, in creating a non-hierarchical, a horizontal experiment in Zen training and beyond Zen, kind of social engagement and interfaith and beyond faith training. So the idea is in these 6 videos, there'll be one introductory video and then 5 training videos. All the core tools will be passed on to you so that wherever you are in the world, you can use these tools to set up your own Zen circle, to train together and to see what opens up from that. It's an ongoing experiment. It's not that we have some kind of secret knowledge or great enlightenment that we're passing on to you through these methods. It's more that these are tools we've worked with and that have developed out of our Zen tradition, coming back from Bernie Glassman, from Taizan Maizumi Roshi and Koryo Roshi, and the whole kind of line of Japanese Zen that comes down to us. And then these tools come to you in the same way that you would learn how to use a paintbrush or a drill or a computer. I mean, my daughter, when by the time she was like 2 or 3, was like knew how to use electronic equipment that hadn't even been invented when I was born. So tools come down to us, and what these videos are doing, and this video today for Council Circle, is passing tools on to you, which then you can use however you want to. They become yours. When you listen to this video, I they're not mine to give, but I give it to you. You know, from me to you, and it's yours. It's no longer mine. It becomes yours. So, Council Circle. So, people normally think of Zen as people sitting very still in meditation posture, possibly wearing black robes, staring at a wall, or possibly staring at each other. I don't know. But in the Zen Peacemakers, in the tradition of Bernie Glassman, we especially use the idea of talking circles, which is an idea that comes from the Native American tradition. And it doesn't only come from the Native Americans. I mean, I personally worked a lot in experimental theatre, for example, and through the writings of Peter Brook, I learned circle work, and there are many other forms of circle work. So let's be open about where this comes to us and not create one kind of fixed lineage. Let's be open to everything. But in terms of the kind of like the simple history, when Bernie Glassman was creating the circle process in the early 2000s, he had friendships and contacts with people like Joan Halifax, who's a great Zen teacher, and Joan had been part of something called the OJ Foundation, which was a kind of experimental spiritual community that brought teachers from native traditions and Buddhist traditions and all kinds of traditions together to teach and to learn with their community. And one of the practices they brought in was the idea of council circle, which came from the Iroquois tribe, I think, in the way it came to Joan. And you're probably familiar with the basic idea of council circles. So, you have a group of people sitting in a circle physically, and the physical energy of the circle brings a kind of equality or togetherness to a group of people. So much so that Zen Peacemaker Circles, what I'm training you in right now, sometimes when people say Zen Peacemaker Circle, they think we're talking about the council circle practice because that's what stands out for them. The rest of Zen Peacemaker stuff is basically just kind of an open form of Zen. But when people see us sitting in the circle and doing council circle, that's what they associated as Zen Peacemaker Circle. But actually, this is just the council circle practice. So anyway, so you have a group of people, you know this idea. So I don't know, the tribe has to make a big decision. A group of people sit down in a big circle and they pass around the talking piece, maybe like a pipe or something, the peace pipe. And one person speaks about what they think should happen. They pass it to the other. And rather than discussing it as we perhaps would in a kind of traditional Western way of thinking with logic in our heads, the the myth of the council circle that comes down to us is, if you like, people talking, telling stories, like using storytelling, personal stories, communal stories, to evoke a deeper wisdom. That sounds a bit cliched, but a kind of a more a collective intelligence, an intelligence that's born from the way that the people in the tribe, their lives are interwoven with each other, and words and sound and symbols and story can just a word can bring something up in the collective intelligence, which means that when the elders of the tribe are making their decision, the energy and the wisdom of the council circle feeds into the decision. And this is, if you like, the storytelling version. Once upon a time, in that far off land, which I'm speaking from Liverpool in England, so in that far off land of America, over the Western Seas, there were these people called Native Americans who hold council circles, and this is how it happened. And it comes to us through through the OJ Foundation, through Joan Halifax, and then into the Zen Peacemakers, and the reality is it comes in lots of different directions. So the reality is that Bernie was around creating the circles in the early 2000s. Bernie and all of those communities were involved in the 70s and the 80s in America and New York. So there was the Jewish renewal movement, with lots of people gathering and training, like studying together in circles, and there were Sufi circles, like Bernie Glassman trained with. Well, he had a close friendship with a teacher called Lex Hickson, who was also a Sufi teacher. And, Sufis work in circles. And so the whole idea of circle work was very much alive in America at that time anyway. And holism. And so I think council circles come to us as an idea, as a fresh way of thinking. And in Zen, it's very useful because Zen tends towards silence. So to actually have something that could help us to listen to each other is very, very good. At the moment, this is particularly relevant because at the moment, as I'm, this is like 2018 as I'm talking, and the whole Me Too movement and patriarchy is being questioned. And when council circle and things like this were being developed within the Zen Peacemakers 10, 15, 20 years ago, the idea was that silence is a very male way of relating to things. You have very forms of sitting, silent meditation, and maybe in a world where men have a lot of power and a lot of talking, a lot of control, actually men learning to be silent is not a bad thing. But within traditional Eastern societies, and even to some degree to the West as well, women's traditional role has been to be silent. Men are the ones who speak. Men are the ones who literally speak, but also speak in terms of coming up with ideas of leadership. And the idea that to create a space where women's voices can be heard is quite a powerful tool. And to build that into the structure of the Zen Peacemaker Circles when we were developing them and Bernie was developing them in the early 2000s was a conscious, a deliberate attempt to bring in a kind of more responsiveness to what women traditionally need, rather than just having kind of this very male patriarchal tradition, which in many ways Zen is. So that's one way of thinking about where it comes from. The other thing is that Bernie talks a lot about the one body, that we can come to know that my hands are not separate, but they're part of one living thing, and my head and my body, and sometimes we're not even that aware of that. We don't feel like we're in one body, but when we're integrated, we feel it. And then you can feel that your family is part of one body, and your friendships. And then the more you do spiritual practice of any kind, I think, not just Zen, but Christianity, Islam, heathenism, or there's so many different religions that help you have a feeling that our sense of connectedness is wider and wider and wider into what Bernie calls the infinite circle. And Bernie sometimes calls us the one body, just as we know the parts of our body are distinct, but they're part of one body, so we can experience the whole of life as one body. And the council circle practice, sitting in a circle, some people listening while someone else speaks, and then changing this role so that you become the speaker and someone else becomes the listener. It gives us a sense very, very, very directly that we are part of something whole. So we're distinct. Our own voice is there and our own listening is there, but it's within a wider field. And I think this is one of the reasons why circle practice works within the Zen Peacemaker Circle approach and within any collective spiritual community, because it does give us a feeling very quickly for being part of something larger. And this is what it's all about in the end. I mean, oneness, we-ness, to see that I'm in a sense you and you are in a sense me. You know, we're in this world, we're in this life together, and so much separates us. But when we can just stop and I can listen to you and you can listen to me and we can be together one to one and then in community and group, then something changes, something subtle, something beautiful, I think. Something very humanly beautiful. And there's something very, very humanly beautiful about this spiritual geometry of sitting in a circle. It's not the only way. I think there are many geometries, if you like, possible in terms of spiritual community and the energy of spiritual community. But I think the circle is a beautiful form, and I'm very, very grateful that it's come down to us and that I'm able to pass it on to you. So, circle practice. The idea is that the way we practice it in the Zen Peacemakers is very simple, and you can take it, you can work with it, you can develop it. So, we sit in a circle. Generally, if it's a bigger circle or something, something more serious, you would tend to have one or two people take on the role of kind of like the facilitator, to introduce it, to begin it, to end it, to maybe remind people if it becomes a bit messy or something. But on the other hand, if it's a very small circle and you're doing it informally, then you don't always need a facilitator. You can just spontaneously do it together. But let's stick with the form. So someone acts as a facilitator to kind of welcome everyone into a circle and to hold the energy of the circle. And we have a talking piece. So I don't know, it could be anything. It could be something found on the day. So you could take these beads. I used these beads last week in a talking circle in Liverpool. Or it could be something that as a community becomes a regular talking piece. It has some significance to you, like the mythical peace pipe for the Native Americans. It could be something you've found or created together. So you take the talking piece and you put it in the middle, and you also have a candle and maybe some incense, something to mark the sacred center of the circle. And then before beginning, the facilitator would remind the participants of the spirit of the circle, which again, I don't think we need. I mean, this is 15, 20 years after we first developed this. So, but as we first developed it, we used these four intentions from the OJ Foundation's model, which is, first of all, once the candle is lit in the middle, don't speak to each other. Don't kind of like get into discussions or particularly not arguments across the candle in the middle, which for some of the Native American tribes was called the children's flame. And with the meaning that it symbolized future generations, that disharmony in the community leads to suffering for the future. So don't talk or argue across the children's flame. And then the next one of it, well, I don't know which order they came in, but like the next one could be don't prepare. So as the talking piece comes round to you, around the circle, don't be sat there thinking, oh, what shall I say? What shall I say? And then thinking about your response to other people's words. But trust that, something will come to you when the time comes. Let's put your intention and your kind of like quality of presence into listening to the person who's speaking. The third intention, again, I don't know about the correct order, but the third intention is to be lean of speech. So, if there's only 3 or 4 of you in a circle, you can tend to speak as much as you want to. But if you're in a big circle, sometimes as it happens with 20 or 30 or even 40 or 50 people, then even if each of you only speaks for 1 minute, then it would take like a whole hour just to get around the circle once. So be aware that if you can speak directly in a simple way, that's better than going on and on and on. But on the other hand, there are times when it's okay to go on and on and on, and we just like listen and try to feel what's coming out of each other. So don't worry too much about that. And then I can't remember what the fourth one is now. Be lean of speech. Don't prepare. Don't argue across the children's flame. And no, it's gone. I'll remember it sometime as we're going along. So sorry, obviously speak from the heart. So we're not in council circle trying to discuss things intellectually, which is fine. You can have spaces for that in the group, obviously. But once we're within a council circle space, it is a kind of sacred space. It's a space where speaking and listening is more magical, is more alive somehow. So in order to do that, bring everything to your heart. So speak from the heart, speak from your own experience. Don't speak directly in argument or response to someone else. Speak from the heart and listen from the heart too, I think. So these are the 4 intentions, but you can maybe come up with your own principles for your group or whatever to create a sense of the sacred space. So you create the facilitator reminds the people of the intentions, and then anyone from the circle can be invited to light the candle and to make an opening dedication. So light the candle and say, I dedicate this circle to the peace around the world, or I dedicate this circle to our friends who have traveled over to Myanmar today, or something like that. So we open the circle with the dedication, and then the talking piece is in the middle of the circle, and anyone can begin. So when they're ready, someone can pick up the talking piece, and holding it, they speak whatever they want to from the heart, and everyone else listens. And they don't have to say words. They could sing. You could mime something. You could sit in silence. There was one member of the circles in America in the early days who, whenever the talking piece came to him, he would just cry, and that was always his offering. So your offering can be anything, and then when you're finished, pass it on to the next person, and then the next person receives it, and if you like, you can make a little bow and then listen, and they do the same, and it goes all the way around the circle once. And then often, if you have time, it's worth going around a second time, because sometimes the first time kind of like starts the energy off, kind of like stimulates the response in our imagination and our heart. And then the second time through, sometimes it becomes fuller or richer. And then, having been around once or twice, we put the talking piece back in the middle, and the facilitator would invite anyone to make any kind of final remark. So then anyone could take the talking piece, and maybe 2 or 3 people end up kind of making final comments to bring this that need to be said. And then we put the talking piece back down in the center and maybe sit in silence for 5 minutes, or maybe sing a song together if we've got something we do in community like that. And then finally, someone will make a closing dedication. Again, we dedicate this council circle to the possibility of people all over the world listening to each other, or whatever you like, and blow the candle out. And then once the candle's blown out, you're no longer in the sacred space, and you can just chat again as normal and come back to the normal energy of normal life. And it's worth having a kind of I mean, this isn't therapy, this isn't counseling, but a certain amount of confidentiality so that people can speak in the circle without feeling that if they brought something up in the circle, they necessarily want to talk about it outside of the circle. Again, it depends on the kind of circle. If it's like an informal checking in, I mean, relax. Don't be too strict about these things. But be aware that what's said, what's safe to be said, what's appropriate to be said within this space of sacred listening and speaking is not necessarily something that is as safe or as appropriate or has a place in the different mandala of communication that comes in the group outside of the council circle. So be aware of this. Be aware of different spaces. I think in general, be aware within a spiritual community and a Zen Peacemaker Circle of the way different spaces have different qualities of energy and life about them. So there's council circles and relaxed council circles and more formal council circles. There's collective decision-making process discussions. There's study. There's meditation. There's sitting over tea. There might be social action projects. And all of these, I think part of learning to create a circle together is a sensitivity and appreciation and a respect for the different qualities of energy of different situations and the different qualities of relationship that happen in those situations. So this is Council Circle, and that's basically it. You can take it and you can, when the facilitator introduces it at the start, you might have a theme. You might say, today's Council Circle is on the theme of how do we solve how do we solve the presidency of Donald Trump? How are we going to get rid of Donald Trump? I don't know. Not how are we going to get rid of Donald Trump, but what do we do about the fact that Donald Trump is president, for example? Or your theme could be as general as what's alive for us right now, and this is one we often use. So just going into the council circle, what's alive for you right now? So it can be practical, it can be simple, it can be a council circle following study. You might have spent a weekend studying a book by the Dalai Lama on world peace, and then at the end of all the study, you get together and hold a really powerful and deep council circle on what that touches and releases deep inside you. So there are many ways you can use it, and I would say I would leave it up to you in creating a Zen Peacemaker Circle. Always have council circle nearly every time you meet. Particularly any kind of like full meeting, any full gathering, have at the very least a council circle asking something like what's alive for us right now. I mean, beyond a checking in circle, you can use council very loosely, without having to go through the whole thing at the beginning and end by just like passing around a talking piece and checking in with each other. But I think try in a Zen Peacemaker Circle to have one really beautifully held council circle in each full gathering. Something else I'd like to say before I finish on this is that over the years working with council circle, when I'm facilitating or whether I'm participating, I've noticed that groups at different times have different energies. So if there's a kind of moderately high but fairly relaxed energy, then you can do a normal council circle passing around the talking piece. Sometimes if the energy is either very high or very low, the predictability of passing it around one after one after one can actually deaden the energy because people, if they're very restless, they get the fact that they know that 5 more people are speaking before them makes their energy kind of like it's hard for them to listen. Or if the circle's very flat and very dull, the predictability of going around to the next person, to the next person, to the next person can put you to sleep, to deaden the energy. You're not bothered, It's like, oh God, I've got to listen to the next person. I've got to listen to the next person. You wouldn't think that, but it's amazing the range of energies and emotional responses people have. So I think facilitating it, you need a sense of the energy and be aware that sometimes rather than doing this kind of going round in sequence, it can be much better to kind of like to weave the talking piece around like a thread. So I hold it and then I give it to someone else randomly in the circle, someone like opposite me or to off that direction, and then they do the same. So you never know who's coming next, which actually keeps you more alive and more focused sometimes. So that's another way you can work with it. And I think just find your own way with that. I think generally going around is fine, and generally personally I go around twice when I'm facilitating it to give that energy. But this kind of weaving as a web is also very nice. And I did a musical council circle once in a Turkish. We had an international music circle in a Turkish cafe in Leicester using this kind of approach. And facilitating that, I used to find that again, if everyone went around one by one and played what they'd brought along, it could become very predictable. Whereas I used to find that having the energy of someone opposite, so someone on this side, then someone roughly on that side, then someone over there, then someone over there, that kept the energy of attention and movement and music kind of like alive and flowing in the circle, which was much more powerful. And then sometimes people would end up kind of like jamming together and playing together. So the energy would come together around the circle too. So the circle form is very open, the council circle form, and see it as a living thing and see it as a tool for collective decision making, which we'll talk about in another video, and see it as a tool for appreciating each other and as a tool for taking deep inside you something you've been studying, and as a tool for responding to things that are happening in the world. See it as something that now belongs to you. Having watched this video and picked up the basic idea, it's yours. You can do whatever you like with it. Essentially, light a candle or have something in the middle to mark the center. Begin the circle, pass around the talking piece, listen, speak from the heart, make a dedication at the end, and leave the sacred space. And that's the whole council circle practice. And it is a beautiful thing. And I'm very, very grateful that it came to me through the Zen Peacemakers and through Bernie and through Joan Halifax and all the wonderful people who brought it together for us. So I hope you enjoy it very much. I'll finish by singing another song like I did in the last one, because music is a part of the training I've received from the Zen Peacemakers over the years. There's a lot of music, and the council circle helps us appreciate each other's life, each other's worlds. Bearing witness is second Zen Peacemaker tenet of bearing witness. And there's a lovely song I learned from a Jewish rabbi called Ohad Ezrahi in Auschwitz. And so this is a song I learned in Auschwitz, in the Auschwitz Bearing Witness retreat from Ohad. You are my father, you are my mother, you are my lover, you are my friend. You're the beginning, you are the center, you're beyond the end. You are my father, you are my mother, you are my lover, you are my friend. You're the beginning, you are the center, you're beyond the end. And I love you so, as you help me to see you in all, to see you in me. I'm in you and you're 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 in me. Thank you very much.